Been good?
Yeah, I mean, I'm adapting, adjusting to the best that I can.
Mm.
Um, it. I didn't see any of this coming. Of course, nobody did. But I literally took a 10-day vacation the first week of the month, of March. So that kind of set me back in a way. But I had full intentions of going up to Maine to work and do that whole service industry up there and keep enjoying life and travel and kind of do that work. But the universe is saying otherwise. So I'm kind of just staying open to opportunities and going with the flow. So you're a master at that, right?
Yeah, just flowing it out and um yeah, I really love the Pacific. The Pacific has been calling to me. This guy's from Fiji, this one. This little Sulu.
Okay. Yeah, was that your first time in that country? You have to tell me all about your ventures and your favorite place.
Well, I started off cruising around the United States. I worked on a yacht and I thought I was going to be able to get paid to travel the world. And I got on the yacht and I was all super excited and realized that that's not what yachting's about, you know. So I decided to build my own yacht and travel all around the coastal United States of America. And after I finished that up, I was like, you know what? There's one state that I haven't been to yet, and it was Hawaii. So I booked a one-way ticket. It was way cheaper than I thought it would be, and I flew over to Hawaii. I I worked on an organic farm with some beautiful people from all over the world, and I got inspired by them. I was talking to these women that had traveled to Africa and Asia, and these women that have been traveling for 5 years straight. And I was like, holy moly, I didn't even think that was possible. So I built up some courage and I said, if they can do it, then I can do it as well. And so I decided to fly to New Zealand and started cruising my way around the Pacific.
So at that point, I mean, it wasn't your yacht. You were boating with other locals. How were you getting around?
Yeah, so I flew to New Zealand because I was in Hawaii and I was looking for a place to go. And I remember hitchhiking in Hawaii. This guy picked me up. He was this big Samoan looking guy. And he started asking me where I was from. And so I was saying where I was from. I was kind of scared of this guy. I'm not going to lie. He was very intimidating. I didn't want to ask him where he was from because I figured he was from Hawaii. And I didn't want to look like an idiot. But he's like, well, I'm from Tonga and everything's beautiful in Tonga. And like talking about the beaches and he kept speaking about it. I never asked the guy. So, I was kind of like, okay, then I'll go there. That's my next spot I'm going to go. I'll go to Tonga. And he thought I was joking. But the next day I booked a flight to New Zealand because he said you have to go to New Zealand first before you fly to Tonga. So I flew over to New Zealand. And I remember getting on the plane. I was the last person on the plane. And I remember getting on the plane, luckily, um, and talking to this girl next to me. And I remember looking at my wallet. I had $2 in my wallet, $2 American and a bus pass.
Oh man.
This girl was telling me that she was going to go fly from the North Island to the South Island and go over to Queenstown. And I was like, oh, where's that? She goes, oh, it's on the South Island. And I go, there's two islands? So I had no idea what I was getting into. I had $2 in my pocket and a bus pass, but I was going to New Zealand. And ended up showing up there. And man, it was a total different world. It was very relaxed. It was like America 100 years ago. That's what it felt like.
So Tonga is part of New Zealand?
No, no. Tonga is an island outside of New Zealand
Okay.
in the South Pacific. And I really wanted to go to Tonga. So I booked a flight. Long story short, I didn't know. I was so used to booking one-way flights that I booked a one-way flight from Oahu to New Zealand. Once I got to the airport, they said, you literally cannot get on this flight unless you get a flight out. So I booked it at the counter. I booked it like last second, a flight to Tonga. I was like, okay, cool, I'm set. And I gave myself a month in New Zealand, and lo and behold, it wasn't enough time for me. So I booked a last minute flight to Tonga. And then as I was, well, I wanted to cruise around in a car, like most people do. First part, I ended up flying down to Queenstown where that girl said she was going to go, which is on the South Island of New Zealand. There's two islands, one up north, one down south, because the winter was coming and it was going to be cold. So she said you got to go south because it'll get too cold, um, because the cold weather's coming. You got to get there soon. So I went there, did my thing, met this girl, and she drove me up halfway up the South Island. And then by this time, it was like Easter weekend. And I was like, okay, well, now it's time. She left. So now it was time for me to rent a car because I needed to keep cruising all the way up north. Um, I didn't realize that during Easter weekend, everything was going to be booked up. So I'm over here in the middle of Christchurch in New Zealand, South Island, and I don't have a car. And so I talked to the rental guy, and the rental guy's like, "Hey, why don't you just hitchhike? You're a cool looking guy. You don't look very, sketchy. You got picked up in a jiff." And I was like, super scared. I was like, I don't know, man. Like this rental car guy is
You've
telling me,
never hitchhiked before, huh?
well, I have
Right.
hitchhiked before, but
Not
never.
in a different country.
Yeah, exactly. So I was kind of nervous, and I was embarrassed, like to sit out there with my thumb in my bags. But I was like, you know what? I want to make it into a game. So I started hitchhiking, and I ended up, the first ride was a woman. She picked me up. I was so surprised, because
And
I
most
figured that women were
ladies would
nervous.
not be picking up.
Yeah, I thought they would be nervous picking up guys, but I was selling it. I was like, I did
Wearing
not.
what kind of radical clothing this day?
I was looking pretty spiffy because I did not want to look sketchy,
Sure.
you know.
Respectful. Mm-hmm.
So she picked me up, and then I was like, man, this is kind of fun. I'm gonna keep doing this. I ended up hitchhiking the whole South and North Island of New Zealand, and it took me about a month to get there. And as I was hitchhiking, I met this girl. Another girl picked me up. Not only did she pick me up, she was in a cool van. I was like, oh, I wish I could get picked up from that girl. She turned around to come and pick me up, and she gets me in the van. We start talking. This girl was crazy. She was like, "This is awesome." And she was like, "Oh yeah, my ex-boyfriend was a base jumper. I'm gonna go to Nepal and get certified, and I base jump over here." And I was like, "Whoa, this girl's sweet." I need to hang out with her. And then I was like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And she said, "I'm going up north
Yeah.
to hitch a ride to the South Pacific on a sailboat." And I was like, "What? No way! You could do that? You could hitchhike on a sailboat?" So she inspired me to, instead of, like, she was like, "I'm gonna go hitchhike on a sailboat," and I was like, "I didn't know you could do that." She gave me all these details on how to do it. So I was like, "All right, that's what I'm gonna do." So I hitchhiked all the way up to the north side of the island and printed out these flyers and said, what did I do is I changed it a couple times, but it was like, "Will work for ride." I was literally hitchhiking on sailboats. So I printed out these flyers. I was hitchhiking. I was passing out these flyers to these different marinas. And oh, I ended up renting a car for like, what, a week? A week. Because it was like a crazy good deal. I couldn't let it out. And I was about to leave New Zealand anyways. I was there for a month. And for the last week, I was like, you know what? I'm going to treat myself to a car. And I got the cheapest car they had. It was like $20 a day. And it was small. It was like a Nissan, not a Nissan, a Toyota Yaris. And I was like, well, if I'm gonna pay $20 a day, I'm gonna sleep in this thing. So I slept in this Toyota Yaris. I drove all the way up to the northern tippity top of New Zealand. I sandboarded down these huge dunes on the top of Cape Rena. um, and I picked up a hitchhiker. I was picking up every hitchhiker I could because everybody had been so nice to me and picked me up.
You're like returning the favor in a way. Like you were helping the next tier of people kind of loop around, do the same thing. Yeah.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was doing. And I picked up this German girl who had just walked the whole country of New Zealand, South Island and North Island. So like I thought I was cool hitchhiking North and South Island. This girl by herself, it with just a tent, did it with their own two legs. So I guess one of the morals of the story is all of these badass women keep on pushing me to push my limits, you know? Because I keep meeting these women, they're so incredible and they're so inspiring. So I picked her up. We cruised in the Toyota Yaris down this place called 90 Mile Beach. And it's called 90 Mile Beach because it's literally 90 miles of beach. Now, I didn't read all the clauses and paperwork in my rental car.
Rental agreement.
Yeah, but I was like, you know what? If we go on this 90 Mile Beach, we've got to get out because if I get stuck here, they're gonna know that I took this Toyota Yaris on the beach. So we sent it. I had my GoPro flying out the window, and we were literally going 90 kilometers per hour on 90 Mile Beach. We were just like flying, woo, being this and this German girl, and man, I can't believe we made it past those things. But yeah, she inspired me, and I dropped her off because she had a flight to catch. She was hitchhiking she was hitchhiking 4 hours and had a flight to catch. So she's lucky she ran into me because she just got there in time.
Yeah. That is so wild to me. You don't hear those stories often, and it is nonetheless like inspiring to like, wait, if they're doing it, like why can't I? And if they're like still alive and safe and healthy and they can do it. But from my perspective, it's hard to like, trust in another country's like well-being and people around because you intuitively know, and I believe, of course, in the law of attraction, like you're going to attract the people you need during your travel experiences. It's just being open to that opportunity, of course, and going from there. But it's still very radical for me to hear that everybody that you basically met along your way was a lady. Like what? How old would you say these people are?
The German girl is probably maybe 22, 23.
That is young.
The two girls that I met in Hawaii, one was about 27 and one was about 21 or 22.
Hmm.
And the girl that was 22 had been traveling straight for 5 years. And she was just a little French girl, and she was like so wise. And I was like, man, I went to six years of college. I could have been traveling for 6 years. So yeah, she really, really inspired me. And all these, men have inspired me as well. But I think that, when I see that women are so independent and so free spirited and so confident with their traveling alone, that it inspires me.
Mm-hmm. So for some of the listeners, I'm sure they're like, well, how in the hell do you travel for 5 years without working? Like, what does that look like for you? Did you do service and, get paid to do certain trades or?
Well, I did. I worked on the yacht for a while. And when you work on yachts, like if you're just getting out of high school and you don't know what you want to do, or you don't know where you want to go or what your major is going to be, man, I recommend everybody to go in the yachting industry because you're going to be exposed to people from all over the world. You work really hard and you start to figure out what you want, you don't want really fast.
Sure.
And you make a lot of money, because you're living on a 30 to $50 million yacht minimum. And you're making 3 to 5 grand a month with no charges, with no rent, with no food bills, nothing. So you get out of 3 or 4 months, and that's only if you're working on a private boat. If you're working on a charter boat, you're making $1,000 in tips every week. So you're working a little bit harder and it's more difficult usually to get a charter job. But once you get in a charter job, you're banking.
So you've done both, right?
Sorry?
Have you done both then, like charter and like
I
job?
only worked on one boat and I realized that at that time it wasn't for me because I was all into the videography and like, hey, everybody look at me, look at these videos. This is fun, boom boom. But when you're working on a yacht, it's like, shut up, do your job, and don't be um, loud, don't stand out, just do your job quickly, efficiently, and kind of be in the background. And I've never really been a background person. I always would try to make sure that people know that I'm there. I don't know why. I guess it's because I was an only child or something. But I
But
always want to be like, sorry,
from
go
an
ahead.
outsider perspective, I feel like you really, I don't want to say turn up the like you bring the party to a place, but you really ignite like another type of energy within people, and like that's just what I've seen from your videos and in your radical, dressing up in the car, like just doing really crazy things, outlandish, like kind of to get people out of their comfort zones, but you like shake them up a little bit, It's like, hey, just let loose.
That's really what I try to do. Every time I go to like a big city, or like when I went to Sydney or when I went to Auckland, everybody was, you could see the difference. It went from like a big country to like everybody warm smiles and hugs. And it went to like everybody's got to go to work and they're all in their suits and they're all like walking at the same time. And I remember I would just wear a Hawaiian shirt, cruise and dance like this in the street just so people would look at me and be like, holy crap, what is that guy doing that I'm not doing? And or they would laugh at me, right? But they would laugh, and that thought of me walking down the street like a gypsy, like I like walk down the street like Jack Sparrow. You know how he walks and he kind of floats?
Yeah.
That's how I would walk down these big cities, wearing like weird outfits, just so they would laugh and it would change their perspective on the day. And for them to not take life so seriously and think they're such a big deal, maybe it'll affect their life in just a little bit. And that's what I try to do. Try to stand out and make people feel goofy inside, bring out their inner child.
100%. Yeah, we've all lost touch, and I don't really believe in growing up, so I think it's important to stay, I mean, just and to enjoy life. And, with the situation we're all experiencing now, I did a little message the other day, but it was the inside of like, why, like, we can have the choice to basically be like sincerely depressed right now, or we can kind of rise up and share a smile with a neighbor or a stranger or someone like walking by, like a simple wave. Like, I've tried to make it a mission of mine to acknowledge people, because that's, again, that attention thing that we don't maybe receive as a kid, but we want more throughout life. And everybody wants to be valued and appreciated and loved and, noticed, really. So I think that's kind of what you do. You make someone like feel like they are a person again, with that simple act of weirdness or kindness, whatever it might look like during that moment. But it's inspiring. And I think that's, part of what I want to bring to the surface with this podcast is people who are doing that. Like, it's important to be authentic and weird and different and not basically cookie cutter, you know, suitcased up and inside of a box or anything of that. So I love hearing that you've traveled so many, like you've experienced so many different types of cultures. And I mean, when you come back to the States, are you not like shocked still? Like, how does that work for you when you?
Oh, that's a great question. So I've traveled to a few countries, and I did like a Euro trip. I've been around South Pacific a couple times, and this trip coming back from South Pacific was the biggest culture shock that I've ever had. Coming back, because I basically lived in Fiji for a couple months. I lived in a village where it was like a time warp. Time didn't exist. Everybody, they lived in their little houses that they built. Everything ran on solar. It was in the edge of this village in the middle of nowhere in Fiji, where everything that they they acquired, they farmed, and they got the fish from the sea. They didn't really need anything. So I went from this loving, and I was an outsider, and they took me in as their family. And I lived with the family for 3 months, and that's where I got this Sulu. Um, so it was just so incredible to go through that warm experience of they don't know who I am, but they open their house with open arms. And then I went from that setting to Australia, and I was there for 2 months, and I volunteered for this festival, and everything was provided where they give you fresh, organic, vegan food 3 times a day. And you work with your peers, and all these people are the most loving people, like where you can go up and give anybody a hug and you're not going to worry if they're going to hug you back or not.
Sure.
They're going to give you a good solid hug. I just ran into this guy, and he was talking to me about, oh, you got to go to Woodford, you got this, you got to go. And I was kind of like, I don't know, I'm only here for like 2 months. I don't really want to volunteer for a full month of my time here. But everything was set up so perfectly where like, oh, there's this one guy he's in charge of this department, and they're looking for people. And I was like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. But okay. Yes. Okay. So I said yes. And man, I'm so glad that I did, because it changed my life. And that's pretty much what I do when I'm traveling around. Is I think of something, and the crazier it is, and the more it makes my heart beat, and the more that it kind of aligns with, the more it's like set up where it's effortless, I'll say yes.
Sure.
So I said yes to this, and I volunteered for a month, and these people were incredibly warm and welcoming, very similar to the people in Fiji. Very spiritual. Like I learned all these different type of spiritual practices from mostly women again. Um, and then once I left that place, I came back to America, and just being in the airport, I felt this completely different vibe. Like the security guards were very short with people. They're frustrated. Everybody's speaking different languages, and they're like not happy about that. I'm not saying anything against the United States, but just it was such a shock, because I went from all these warm people where I could laugh and joke with people in security to like there's literally this sign that said in the what was the Orlando International Airport, where it said control room. Like it said control room, and there was a line of people, and there were these security guards with like these bulletproof vests and batons. It was intimidating for me as an American going back into my country.
Huh.
So once I got back in the United States, that was a big culture shock for me. It just didn't feel as welcoming as other countries. And maybe that was just because I was so used to all this warm loving experience. But yeah, I felt almost uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I'm here, everything equals out,
Sure.
But that was the biggest transition I've ever been through. Because I basically lived in the South Pacific for a year and a half.
So that's how long, I mean, once you'd gone to, your first venture was to Hawaii, you said, right? And then from there it was New Zealand. And then, I mean, what does that timeline look like? A year and a half, you saying?
Yeah, about a year and a half from now.
Wow. Did it feel that long? It's not even that long, but it is in a sense,
Yeah, like now looking back on it, I'm like, oh, that was only a year ago. It flew by, and it changed me so much. And usually I don't want to go back. When I come back home, everything kind of equalizes out usually. So usually I'm like, okay, I need to travel again, because I thrive for that feeling of self-discovery. The more that I travel around, and the different type of people that that I'm surrounded by, I start to discover certain parts within me that I'm like, oh, like when I went to Woodford, I didn't realize that there was a whole bunch of people like that. Like I'm such a hugger. I love love. And I didn't realize there was people like that. So I was just loving the experience.
Soaking it up.
Absolutely. I was just I remember there was one time where there was there I didn't know these existed, but these like there was a snuggle puddle. I'd never heard of it. It was a cuddle puddle. I've never heard of that before. And there was all these people just cuddling together on the grass. And I was like, okay, this is cool. And then all of a sudden I started getting massages. There was like five people giving me one person, five people giving me a massage. And I was so excited. I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. And it wasn't like nobody was looking for anything else. Nobody's looking for payment or like, oh, I'm doing this for you. Like, you got to do something back. It was just love. And it was very inspiring. And yeah, so the biggest culture shock I ever had was actually reverse culture shock coming back to the United States about a month and a half ago.
So are you like still adjusting, or you say you're pretty grounded in the space again?
What's so funny is that I kept hearing the word, you need to go back home and ground. And I was like, what does that mean? What is ground? Because I was like in this huge state of fairy tale bliss when I was in Australia. Everybody's, you need to start grounded. So when I came back to the United States, I was like, ground. So that's exactly what I've been trying to do is, go to the lake, meditate. I do my yoga. And sometimes I just sit on my hammock, play some music, and just look up at the trees. And that's it. I'll do that all day. So yes, this has been a grounding experience, and it's been eye-opening, and it's been great to be able to be with my family, for an extended period of time. And I don't feel antsy.
Yeah.
And I think and actually Fiji and Australia and Hawaii did that for me, because I used to be somebody who would be like, okay, I need to go, I need to leave, I need to go, I need to leave, I need to do something, I need to do activities. And that whole experience just slowed me down.
And would you say, I mean, that's because that's kind of how they live life, kind of laid like for that Fiji village, they don't have clocks, I'm sure, right? Like, what is the time management of what,
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
they have this thing called Fiji time. Oh, everything in Fiji time. But they know, like they don't really set alarm clocks. They don't really have, they have phones, but they don't really
But
know
they're so in tune with like the natural.
exactly. What was crazy is like in America, kids usually have to get woken up by like an alarm, and then they got it shaken out of bed, or like water just got to get thrown in their face to go to school. In Fiji, they wake up with the sun. So they wake up at like 5:30, 6 o'clock. All the kids are just up and walking around, and their school's not until 8.
Wow.
But that's just like the their parents don't need to wake them up or be like, hey, get you ready for school. They're on the clock. Um, they go by nature, and they were teaching me so many things about how to climb a coconut tree, which coconut is rotten, which one isn't, how to open it up, how to build a house out of sticks. Like all these 12, 13-year-old kids were my guides.
Do you know
So
what their schooling looks like then, as far as like the actual structure of the education system?
well, I was able to see the outside of the school, but I never went into it. Um, you know, I, they seemed to like school, but um, I was never able to really sit inside. I know that they kind of struggled with like finance and business. Well, I mean, for a little kid, I
That
guess.
sounds like a foreign subject for them because they don't really have that exchange, right?
Exactly, because to them, they don't really need that,
Right.
you know. Um,
They're sustaining through natural resources.
yes, yes, but it was funny that the little kids, their dreams were to have a desk job.
But
Isn't that crazy? Like
it is.
they want to wear like a button-down shirt and sit in front of a desk and have an office job. And because it's just different,
Yeah.
we in America, we think of that. Some people think of that, oh, I don't know, that's really for me. But it just seems like no matter where I go, people are always searching for the opposites. Like, they have all these resources, they have the sun, they they have these beautiful homes with solar power, but they want to be able to buy gifts for their family during Christmas. They want to sit at a desk. They want to have the corporate job. And sometimes when we're in America, we have the corporate job. We have all the nice things. We have all the big houses that we take for granted sometimes, and sometimes we want to simplify. So what I found traveling around is that no matter what you have, you always want something different. So I found the key to my happiness is variability. Going from a really nice place, a really nice neighborhood, to sleeping in a shack, and then going back again, you know, renting a nice car and cruising around the United States, and then hitchhiking
Yeah.
in a different country. So it gives you humility, and it's always a fun experience because it's something new.
Yeah, that's awesome. The closest thing I've had to experiencing that was like, it was almost 2 months living out of my car and like camping on a campsite. But I was kind of working at a restaurant too. So it was like that polarization of like being tuned into real life, but then like literally sleeping outside. And, I didn't want anybody to know at my workplace that I was basically a bum. But I needed money and I needed to get back home to Florida. And, didn't have much but like $300 with me. And was like, all right, here we go. Got myself up here. I got to figure this out. And um, it was a huge learning experience, but you don't like envision challenging yourself in those ways until you're actually in the moment doing it. And you're like, wait, I actually enjoy this. And then, same thing you were saying earlier, you kind of learn more of what you don't want to experience and what you do want, and you kind of shift and sort from there. And like miracles, like magic really just starts to happen because you're like the controller at that point. As that might sound egotistical and selfish, but it's like the truth. You're kind of like manifesting your reality based on, your desires. So once you just become again like that alignment thing you experience, like you're just kind of like there and you can appreciate the trees and when it's just sunny and like life is there to enjoy. And I think with the US being so caught up in the do, this whole hiatus of work, like everybody slowed down. And I think it's given a lot of people, more time to appreciate, of course, biking, with the beach being closed, like when those reopen, I think it's just this whole another perspective shift of life. And it's amazing that we can experience that, of course, and continue to share that with one another. And I mean, that polarization of, yeah, being rich and famous or a nice car, big hotel room, spa, ocean view versus like, yeah, the Fiji village, like that's priceless. Like you can't put, that experience on an Airbnb necessarily and sell that.
You're absolutely right, and it was so funny. My mom actually came and visited me in the village in Fiji, and my mom's used to traveling, and she usually stays at the Marriott or something like that. And she actually came to the village and stayed in the village with me. And it's no Ritz Carlton. It's like a 1-star hostel, but she loved it. It was. She told me it was her favorite vacation she's ever had,
Wow.
and it was so cool to go from that to have my mom there, and like my Fijian family all came together and everybody started crying. Everybody, the whole village got special food for my mom to eat. Like they would all collect the fruits and veggies from all around, special food for her. And I'd been living there for 2 months, so I knew like that everybody was coming together to get all this stuff. And it was cool for her to have experienced that. And then after that, we ended up going to like this nice, 4 or 5-star resort right on the water. So it was great for me to take a hot shower. I hadn't taken a hot shower in like 3 months. So, I remember that was the longest shower I've ever taken. Oh, it was nice. But then, after a couple days, I already missed the village.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I
Would
said,
you say it was like that community side you were missing or the actual like way of living? I mean, it kind of goes hand in hand, but
it was a little bit of both. It was so cool to wake up every morning knowing that I didn't need to do anything.
sure.
because when I'm here and I see like my parents are working or doing something, it makes me antsy because I feel like I don't want to be a lazy bum just lay around the house all day. But there, they have there's certain things they need to do. They go to the farm to get food. They don't have a refrigerator. They don't have, an oven. They have none of that stuff. So every day they have to walk 2.5 miles to go get their produce. That's just the way of life. And they didn't necessarily need me to do it. So I would go to the beach and just like listen to an audiobook, meditate, and really get deep within myself. And the other cool part was all the kids thought I looked like Jesus, so they kind of surrounded me, and that we would dance together. And once I danced with them like one of the first 3 days, and I danced this one song. It was called "Sweat." Girl, I want to make you sweat. Sweat till you can't sweat no more. And I started dancing with that and playing. I had this music box, and that was that. From then on, it was like all like everybody wanted me to dance. Every single time they'd try to sing that song to get me to dance. So it was um, it was pretty energy. Uh, I guess not draining, but every time dancing with the kids was something I just had
Yeah,
fun
they're
to.
like they idolized you for sure.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
did they, eventually come to understanding like how your journey led, you to their village and such, or
I
how
don't
did you find the village now?
know. Well, again, remember that girl that I said I met that picked me up in the van? She inspired me to sail. I ended up missing my flight to Tonga from New Zealand, and I was really upset and really embarrassed. But I decided, you know what? Screw it. I'm gonna sail there. And so I took a bus all the way back up north. Was there for another month. Just I was really selling myself. Ended up meeting this awesome couple that said, "Hey, we're going to Fiji. You want to come? All expenses paid. Food and everything. Let's go to Fiji." So I was like, "Yes." So I ended up going to Fiji, cruising around. I ended up meeting up, cruising around with them for 2 weeks and coming back, going with a different sailboat, going up to Tuvalu, then coming back and meeting. Then I went to this different island in Fiji and met the same girl that inspired me in New Zealand to go sailing in the first place. And she was like, "Hey, I'm going to go over to this village called Lavena. I'm going to stay there for a few days in my friend's house." And I was like, "Whoa, like you're going to stay at a village? How are you going to do that?" Again, you know, inspired by these incredible women. And she's like, "Yeah, I met this lady. She's really nice. We're going to work with her. We're going to make yoga mats. You see that yoga mat?"
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
So she created this dream with this lady, and I ended up going to this village, and I was like, "Okay, sure, yeah, I'll go. What day are you going? Okay, I'll go with you." Kind of thinking that she would be able to get me in there, like maybe I could stay with her. I thought that'd be cool. But then when I got there, she had a friend with her from New Zealand, and they didn't have space for me. So I decided to stay in this. So basically, I took the bus all the way to the other side of the island, not knowing anybody. But there was a lodge there, which saved me. So, lodge is like $15 a night. But I was determined. I was like, I want to stay with one of these people and I'll pay for the food or pay to stay, but I want to be able to live the real Fiji life. So the day of, I went outside and I told everybody in the lodge, I was like, I want to learn how to build a Fijian hure, which is a hut made out of sticks, from the bush. And it's it's kind of like, how can I describe it? You know how like Native Americans have their teepees where they create them out of these big poles and they wrap uh, this hide around it.
Mhm.
It's similar to that, except the way they make it in Fiji. So they have like these different. Uh, Sometimes it's bamboo, sometimes it's Y-shaped sticks, and they create this thatched roof. And that's how they used to live back in the day. And now everything's more cinder block and stuff like that. But I was interested and the native culture and how to be able to make that. So I kept saying it to everybody. I want to learn how to build a bure. I want to build a bure. I want to build a bure. And finally, this guy goes, "You want to build a bure? All right, we'll go outside. We'll talk to my dad. You know, he's a carpenter. Maybe he'll teach you." So I remember this guy had this big. He was probably like a 65-year-old man. Had this huge wheelbarrow full of shells. He was pushing it back to his home, and I started introducing myself. He introduced me to his dad. We started talking. I was like, "Hey, I'm from the United States. I've been traveling around Fiji. I wanted to learn how to build a bure." And he goes, "You want to learn how to build a bure? Okay. Tomorrow we learn how to build a bure. Right now it's lunchtime. You come home." So he took me into his home. We sat down, you know, cross-legged on the floor, and his mom prepared lunch for us. And from then on, the next day we started to build a bure. The day after that, we finished the bure, and that was my home. So I asked the chief of the whole entire village. There was like 300 people. I was really nervous. I presented him with the little bowl of kava, the traditional way.
Okay.
To do it, and he gave me permission to build a bure in the village. So
It's like I have chills. That's awesome.
yeah, so
So like one day you could build one of those things or what?
yeah, well, I have the note. I wrote down everything in my journal, so I know how to do it. I mean, he was so fast at it. He was so good at it.
Well, he's
So
probably built infinite like styles of them now.
yeah, he had different styles. This one was the quick one. He said, "I built this in 3 hours."
3 hours?
Yeah, he said by himself he could build it in 3 hours.
That sounds radical to me.
So we built this bure together. The kids came in on it, and it was 100. It was a kind of a A-frame bure, very comfortable on the inside. Of course, I had to bring my little mosquito net so I wouldn't get torn up by mosquitoes. But I lived in there for a few days, and then it started raining, and I started to feel like kind of sick because it was chilly, and the family felt bad for me. So they said, you come sleep in our house." And so from then on, I just they took in what they call us kapalongi, a foreigner. Took in a kapalongi, and Mama Tema made me breakfast, lunch, and dinner from the farm every day, and I got fat and happy for a couple months.
So with that organization of, 300 people sounds like a lot, but to everybody kind of having their own duties and functionalities within that village, the wives or women, of course, cook and prepare meals, I'm sure, clean, and then the guys are actually doing more of the physical work, you'd say, or it's kind of the universal?
Absolutely. The women were incredible. The women would weave mats. They would cook breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They would go out and hunt for fish, like usually octopus and stuff like that. They would cook. Now, some of the dinners they would cook over wood fire, which I didn't know how you can do that. You know, they would bake cakes over the wood fire. Yeah, and but they were constantly working, and then on top of that, every day they would go to church. So they really never had any time off. And the men, they would go up to the farm every day. The big cash crop was kava, so they would have these monstrous, big farms of cropland for kava, and then they would help each other out because they need to weed, like get all the weeds out of the way so the kava can grow. So everybody was pretty much related. So they would all go up, and all of them would work on one, and then all of them would work on the next one, and all of them would work on the next one. And they would come back down the hill with a full, like big old sack, like rice sack full of vegetables so that they could eat for dinner that night. And of course, I wanted to prove myself as a Fijian, so I went up there and did the whole thing and farmed. And they taught me how to farm. They taught me how to harvest. They taught me, what it was to be a Fijian. And everybody had these seles, which was a knife, like a machete. And so I decided it was time for me to get my own sele. So I went up and down the mountain with the sele, and I farmed with them. And what I found out was that this my 65-year-old Fijian dad, Amania, was stronger than me. He would bring down these huge potato sacks full of vegetables and just come down the mountain. He was a big guy too, and man, he would whoop my butt, and he'd be waiting for me, be like, "Oh, you're not used to it." He's like, "You're not used to it. You have baby muscles." And he would do it barefoot.
Wow. Yep.
So it was this really, all of them spoke English, which was really cool.
Mhm.
And it was just really inspiring to live in a community and for them to welcome me with open arms, and it really changed my life.
So you're gonna go back, no?
Oh yeah, for sure. They said, when you get married, you come home. So we have a big Fijian wedding for you. Very, very religious there. Yeah, they go to church like every day and every Sunday and everything. All the big celebrations are either a funeral or a wedding. Those are the two things that happen actually a lot in Fiji, because if
Wait,
you
do
know,
they celebrate death, or it's more of a?
well, they get everybody together. Everybody goes out and they go they go on a special fishing trip. They go and they kill a pig. When you kill a pig, that's like a big deal.
It's a
And
sacrifice of the.
of the pig, yeah, but it's also it's not hard, not easy to do either.
Mhm.
You got to go out with a couple dogs, go up into the bush, find a pig, kill it with your sele, and bring it back. It's an ordeal.
Mhm.
Um, they also have their own little pigs, all their like family pigs, but they only butcher the pig when it's big enough, and B, when it's like a special occasion. And nobody wants to just give up their pig. It's like a big prize.
Like their pet, no?
Well, yeah, it's like a pet. They feed it all the scraps, and it's crazy. When I was there was no trash. Like we would for a full week, we would accumulate the trash for a full week, and it was less than one of those shopping bags for like 1 to 2 weeks full of trash, because everything's used. There's no paper towels, there's no paper products, and even before I was there wasn't any toilet paper. They wouldn't use toilet paper. They would just use this big bottle full of water and just kind of squeeze it up there.
What?
Yeah. So the first time I went to the bathroom, I was like, "Hey, there's no toilet paper. Pass me the toilet paper." And they said, "We don't have any toilet paper." And I said, "What am I supposed to do?" And they said, "There's a bottle there." I go, "What do I do with the bottle?" And they
Woo!
started laughing so hard. And they say, "Okay, well, after you go poo poo, just go to the shower." And okay, I'll do that. And I was yelling that to them out, in the bathroom. It was so funny. And so I said, "All right, when I'm here, I'm buying the toilet paper."
Oh, so did they start using it after you brought it for them?
Yeah, they started using, like, I just started buying the toilet paper, because they just don't buy anything that's unnecessary. They don't need
Sure.
it. They don't buy it because they don't
I
have,
know.
they
Yeah.
don't work. They just, besides the community work. My Fijian brother made a whole bunch of money because he was a really good rugby player. So he would go out, and if they win a tournament, they'd win, $150, $250 a piece. And that lasted him for months. That would last him for months.
Crazy. I mean, realistically, what kind of goods would they be buying, and if they felt the need to do that?
Rice,
Okay. A
oil,
commodity they couldn't grow, of course, probably.
yeah, rice, oil, flour, gas, like propane gas. So the deal that I worked out for him is I was like, "I'll just anything you guys want, I'll get the groceries. You guys have been so kind to me. I'll get the groceries and that was kind of like my rent. They didn't even ask for it. I just felt like I wanted to give it to them. So it was a pretty awesome experience, and I'll definitely go back.
So for now, you're just hanging out in Orlando with the fam?
Yes, yes. For now, I'm hanging out with the fam. My mom and I have been doing workouts. She's an incredible kickboxing instructor. I forgot. And she whoops my butt. She's almost 60 years old. And man, we just did 3 sets of 20 push-ups each. And she was just hounding them out like no big deal. And then we do like these combinations, or your punch, punch, kick, kick, punch. She knows all of it. She used to be a kickboxing instructor, and that was like maybe 15, 20 years ago, but she still remembers everything.
That's awesome.
And what's really cool is she always comes and visits me in my travels. So when I was in Australia, she came to see me in Australia. Fiji, same thing. Not Hawaii. She hasn't been to Hawaii to visit me yet, but it's cool knowing that, you know, especially when Christmas comes around, that's when she gets the itch to come and see me. So I know that she'll always be able to come in and connect with me. It's nice.
That's really awesome. Very lucky and blessed life you live, sir.
Yeah, I've been trying to make the best out of every situation. And sometimes it's really difficult, but sometimes when I'm waking up in new places, it's really easy to be like, what can I do today?
Sure. Well, that's like when you first started your cross-country trip, living out of the car, basically, wasn't that like you had the freedom to do whatever you wanted, right? It's like a really not uncomfortable feeling, but it seems like there's just space, so much space and time, and you're like, all right, I can go this path, I can go this path. And you never know where, who you're going to interact with based on, like, I enjoy making an itinerary plans, but they never go, like, it doesn't go through usually. Like, I know, like, what I want to do or experience, have that, like, in mind. But as far as the timing and where it might shift or lead to after that experience, like, you never know. Because you're going to meet an individual who might inspire you to go a different route or just teach you a different lesson, and you go from there. But
True that. I used to make all sorts of plans. I used to read the Lonely Planet books and highlight all these things and put them on my maps and then make these itineraries. And now as you tell about the story in New Zealand, I just go. And I know that you'll meet nice people, and the nice people will tell you where to go and the best experiences, and that's how I travel.
for sure. Yep, the locals know best.
Yes, the locals and the tourists, the travelers that have already been there.
Yeah.
You attract the person that you like and that you would you'd get along with, and then you really pay attention to their opinion, and then you go there. Like that Woodford experience, I would have never gone there. I would have never known about it until somebody just said you should volunteer. And if I would have had plans like a ticket out of Australia, for example, I would have never been able to do that. But I was wide open, and I had the experience of my life volunteering for that festival.
That's cool. So, in the future, do you see yourself like staying in America then, or not necessarily?
That's a good question. I see myself traveling for probably, 5 years. There's so many places that I want to see. I want to go to India. I want to go to Asia. I want to go to Africa. I want to go to I want to get a little VW Combi and go all the way around South America. I want to get a little moped and cruise my way all around Asia. I want to go to India. I want to go to the monasteries. I want to, I want to go to Africa and go on a safari. Take another SUV with a rooftop tent, and I want to go see the gorillas and the monkeys. I love monkeys. And I want to go see the orangutans in Borneo. So there's so many things that I want to do that it's going to take me a little while.
Patience is a virtue.
Yes,
and I mean, it's crazy to think, those experiences you just shared that you want to still, have the time to enjoy. Like you've already done a whole nother level of like experience, the village thing, the sand dunes, the national parks, and now there's like a whole nother sector of, again, just culture that is so deep within those areas that we're not exposed to, of course. But I had a friend that actually did, I want to say it was like a month-long trip, but they biked so much through Thailand, and some of that footage is just incredible. You're like, this exists, the mountainous range, and just like a very like temperate climate it looks like, but just so different from what type of landscape we have here. And that's why I love to travel is really experiencing, of course, the culture, but the different geography and landscape of an area and how people live differently within that. So it's a wonderful life and a beautiful planet, and I can't wait to get out there again. I don't know when it'll be, but
Yeah, I think it's a cool opportunity right now just to stay grounded and to, realize how awesome we have it in the United States as well.
100%.
Be with family. And then once we get out there, it's going to be incredible. All of the, from there not being as much transportation around, everything's going to start clearing up and the national parks might not be as packed. And Asia is going to be desolate, and that'll be really cool to experience. Something I want to travel right when they let up the gates. I'm going to wait for Asia and go to Bali, and that's the goal. The goal is to go to Bali, to learn how to build a house out of bamboo, and to go back to Fiji and make myself a bamboo house for the village.
Sweet. Not a bad goal. Well, that's really cool. I'm not sure if I have anything else that I wanted to talk about, but if there's anything else you feel that you want to share, or just a simple message to the viewers, or
Yes. I think I would just love to share this one book that really inspired me. It was just by an author that really inspires me as well. I don't know if you've read this book, but the book that I always think about in my brain and think about when I think about my dreams is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho.
yeah, that's a lovely book.
So it just, really simplifies life, and just that if you have a dream, to go for it and follow your own personal legend and don't let anybody else tell you otherwise. And for me, if I have a dream and I don't go for it, it drives me crazy. And right now my dream is to go to Bali, learn how to build a house out of bamboo, and go back to that village and build houses for them. So if you have a dream, go for it.
Well, I hope you have a great day. Thanks again for your time and doing this with me. Happy it worked out, because that first time, and this is like almost 3 years ago, it didn't really work.
Was it that long ago?
I think so. When I was back home in Punta Gorda. That was like 3 years ago.
Wow.
And that was like kind of when I first had the like vision of what I wanted to do. I just didn't know where I was going with it.
Wow.
But now I've got a pretty legit platform rolling. It's just me, myself, and I who's creating it. So it's challenging and rewarding at the same time, but I truly just don't have patience to like do website design and marketing and all that. Because I want it to just kind of like do its own thing. I don't want to have to sell a product, or if someone wants to listen to this, they listen to it. If they don't, they don't. Like, that's their choice. But I think it's still refreshing to hear a conversation like this and have it for people to view and learn from. So that's what I'm doing.
Wow. Again, you're inspiring me. That's awesome.
That's the goal. We all need each other to do that. It's like a funky world we were living in. I think now it's like the real transition time, of course, of like we're all kind of awakening to like what life is supposed to be. And it's joy, it's happiness, it's freedom. Yes, there's lows, but it's like how you perceive that low, or even adapt to it. Because we're all kind of flowing and living and breathing the same stuff. So
I totally agree.
well, stay grounded, my friend.
All right, you too, and have a beautiful quantum leap. Instead of quarantine, I like to call it a quantum leap.